Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be doing my August wrap up, so all of the books that I read in August. I've got myself a cup of coffee in my new mug. Mark bought me this one because he broke my favourite mug, so he replaced it with this one, and I'm feeling pretty happy about it. It fits quite nicely in the hand, so grab yourself a drink. We'll jump straight into the books. Historically on this channel we've gone from the lowest star rating to the highest. I feel like that's a good system, so we're going to do that here today. So starting out at my lowest star rated book, which was a 3 stars, goes to The Book of New Family Traditions by Meg Cox. Most of the books that I read this month were either in audiobook or ebook, so I will add a picture here for you so you can see what this book is about. It's non-fiction. It's kind of a advice book, I guess, on ways you can create traditions within your family and kind of build good kind of relationships, I guess, with your family from when they're really young. This is kind of family as in like the children that you have, although I suppose you could do it with other people as well, as it doesn't really apply just to families actually, now I've thought of it. The reason I picked up this book is because I eventually want to have a family of my own, and I really love traditions and having kind of special things that you do with the people that you love to kind of mark occasions or whatever it may be. It might not even be a specific occasion, it could just be, you know, Saturday night pizza night or whatever it might be, just something that you do with your loved ones. So as you can probably tell by the cover, it's quite an old book. Although it says it's like the new book of family traditions, I feel I'm not sure when it was rewritten or when stuff was added in, but it still feels quite dated. I also struggled with the fact that when they were referring to boys and girls or just children in general, they would like tie them to specific, like gender specific things, like, oh, if you have a girl you should try and do this, and it would be something typically girly, and I just found that a bit annoying, because it's like, why don't you like, if you're going to rewrite the book, you could rewrite it and just say, like, you know, you could do this with your child, and then whoever's reading it can apply it to whatever child they have and whatever like specific needs their child has, rather than being like, oh yes, I have a girl, I should do something pink and glittery with them, or I have a boy, it should be blue, and all these other things. So I just found that a bit frustrating to read, especially as things seem to be like going in a really good direction with stuff. As I said, I'm not really sure when this book was written, so it's probably just a bit of a sign of the time kind of thing with that one. It also featured lots of stuff to do with kind of religious kind of traditions, which is completely understandable because that's like quite a huge thing to have, kind of traditions and kind of things surrounding with your family. I just didn't really take any of that in because I'm not religious, so definitely one to read. It has some really good ideas for kind of other things to do with events and marking specific occasions with your family, but yeah, not one that I would kind of reread in a hurry. Next up at 3.5 stars we have The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by c.s.Lewis. I read The Chronicles of Narnia years and years and years ago, loved it, and have since been trying to read the rest of the series. I think there's like 7 books in the kind of Chronicles of Narnia world. This one was okay, although I'm kind of regretting the fact that I read it in the middle of the summer. I don't know what made me pick it up, to be honest, because usually I read the books nearer Christmas time and they give me this like really warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feeling, and I just didn't really get it that much at this time of year. So I think I may reread this one nearer Christmas because I may enjoy it slightly more than I had done. I won't go into what it's about, but essentially it follows the same characters as The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and their adventures in Narnia. Next up at 3.5 stars we have The Unmumsy Mum by Sarah Turner. You may notice a theme here because actually there's another book that I've got coming up that's to do with families and children and having babies, and goodness, you can tell where my mind's at. So this book is taken from the blog The Unmumsy Mum, which Sarah Turner started when she first had a child and was really struggling to find information or people or anything kind of out in the internet that kind of reflected a very honest opinion of having children, rather than it being kind of all through like a nice rosy lens or whatever that saying is, you know, like people just making it seem like it was easy breezy and that they weren't struggling or anything like that. And so she started it in the mind that she wanted to connect and find people out in the world that also were struggling. This book was very readable and very funny. I really enjoyed her style of writing. The only thing that kind of knocked it down for me was the kind of negative stuff around having children. I get that the whole premise of the book is that she's kind of expressing all of the things that are usually not said. However, I don't think she kind of then shared enough kind of positive stuff, because by the end of the book I kind of was left thinking, this woman doesn't really seem like she ever wanted to have children, or I think it felt like she regretted having children. And I also was thinking of her children maybe one day reading this book, because it was very heavy on the negative side. And, you know, she does kind of talk about that, and she kind of wraps it up by saying, you know, obviously I am happy with my children and all of that kind of stuff. But it came across very, very strong. It's funny though, because in the book she has 2 children, but when I finished the book I went and looked at her Instagram and she's actually had another child since then. So it couldn't have been that bad. Like, I don't know, it was just a weird one. I wish she'd shared more positive stuff, because being someone who hasn't yet had a child, it was a little bit off-putting. I wonder if when I eventually do have children, if I reread this book, I'd maybe relate to it a bit more and actually would just appreciate all the negative stuff that she's sharing, and just kind of get it, because it would be what I was living. I don't know. Has anyone else read this? Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd be interested to hear. The rest of the books in this video I gave 4 stars to. So next up we have The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. The book is told through the perspective of a Pakistani man as he's in a cafe in Pakistan and he encounters an American tourist. And he starts interacting with this man, but we don't get, as the reader, we don't get any conversation back from the American man. Like, so it's always the Pakistani man kind of putting the conversation in the man's mouth and kind of speaking for him, and he shares his kind of life story up until that point with the American man. He's sharing his kind of life story, and part of that comes in the form of his time in America, going to a university in New York, and then the kind of aftermath of September 11 and how that makes people interact with him, and it changes the way that people see him and how he gets treated in America. And the whole time he's kind of talking through with the American man, and it's just very interesting. The fact that it's told solely through this one man and all of his kind of feelings and emotions, you're so immersed in his mind and everything that's kind of led him to be in this cafe with this American tourist. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, so I'd recommend that if this is something that you would be interested in. The audiobook is really, really good. Next up we have Mythos by Stephen Fry. This one I really, really enjoyed. I've actually been really enjoying my kind of Greek retellings this year. I mentioned before The Silence of the Girls and The Song of Achilles. Both of those I really, really enjoyed. But this one is brilliant. Stephen Fry has such a brilliant voice. Again, I listened to this one on audiobook. I would recommend listening to any audiobooks that have been narrated by Stephen Fry. He has such a kind of powerful and wonderful voice to listen to, really engaging. And this one, essentially, he goes right from the beginning and just retells so many of the Greek myths, things like how the Titans and the Olympians kind of came about. One thing I really loved about this book was how he intertwined all these Greek myths and kind of shared all this information about words and the origins of words and how they can kind of be traced back into these stories. It's just really beautiful, and again, the audiobook was just fantastic because it kind of just felt like Stephen Fry was just sat in my house, like just having a conversation with me and sharing all this fun information. I find Greek myths so incredibly interesting, so I really, really love this one, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. Next up is a book I actually do have, and that is Anna and the Swallow Man by Gabrielle Savy. This is an art copy which I got in like 2015, and I've only just read it this year, so well done, Amy. This one is set during World War II, and it follows a girl named Anna as she travels around Poland as her father has been taken by the Nazis, and it doesn't look like he's going to be coming back for her. Anna meets a man who she calls the Swallow Man, and it follows them as they move around Poland, the people that they meet, the dangers that they encounter, and it's just so beautiful. I haven't read a book set in World War II in quite a while. If you followed this channel before, you'll know that I actually read a lot of stuff set in World War II a few years ago, but this is the first one that I've read in a long time, and I really, really loved it, and I can't believe it's been sat on my shelf all this time and I haven't picked it up. But it was just beautiful. As you can imagine, it's pretty heartbreaking at times, but Anna's story definitely stole my heart and made me cry at one point. So I'd highly recommend this one to you all. The final book that I have to talk to you about is The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry. Again, another book about parenting, but this one is definitely my favourite that I've read so far, and definitely one that I'm going to now pick up in physical. I'm going to buy a copy of it. This one, again, I listened to the audiobook of. So Philippa Perry is a psychotherapist, and in this book she shares with you very kind of practical ways in which you can parent your children, and things that you can be aware of in yourself to kind of look out for when you are parenting. Things like if you're getting any kind of negative feeling when you're parenting, trying to look internally to see what might be triggering that, if that's maybe a situation that you encountered when you were a child and someone behaved in a certain way towards you when it happened, and you're then mirroring that with your own children, but it's not a kind of positive thing to be doing, if you get what I mean. What I loved about this book was there were lots of stories shared from people who've actually had experiences in doing these different kind of methods and things that she was sharing. It was also just very accessible. I didn't feel like I was just reading like a manual on parenting. Like, it just read very well. She has a very kind of flowing way of writing, and the audiobook was fantastic. Like, I know that I will enjoy reading this one in physical format because it just flowed very easily. If you're a soon-to-be parent, or if you're like me and just being super prepared for things, or if you're already a parent, I would highly recommend this one. I do honestly think the title says it all. It is one that I think everyone should read. So those are all the books that I read in August. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? What have you been reading this month? Come and talk to me in the comments. As always, I've linked all of the books that I've mentioned in the description down below. All of my social media links are down there as well if you want to come and hang around with me in other places. That's it for today. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye!